Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. We're live. I love it. I'm so glad to be back. And I'll tell you what, I was sick, so I didn't get to have this conversation on September 17th with this gentleman because I was sick again. But that was the drop date. I wanted to do it that day. But we're here today with the wonderful debut author with the novel ShadowBane, Cal Logan. How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude. I don't know if you remember, but I certainly do. Like, I was doing like some late night scrolling and I saw the cover to your book and just kind of dove in and I was like, man, there's a new aspect for me, which was the Asian mythology. I had no idea how much I actually freaking love that. So dark fantasy, boom, check. Asian fantasy, I didn't know it at the time, check. So since that day, man, I've been a big fan of yours, and I'm glad that I had the chance to kind of get to know you a little bit, and we're here tonight to kind of extend that. So how's your day been? Where did you come from tonight? Where are you at? How's your day been?
It's been a long day, like most of my weekdays. For those who don't know, I'm a full-time personal trainer, so I'm out of bed every morning at 5 a.m. Start at 7 a.m. Most days I work until about 6 or 6:30 p.m. Tuesdays I get home a little early. So got home, took a nap, cleaned the house up. So, now I'm ready to go. Now I'm feeling great.
Hell yeah. Dude, naps as an adult is probably what? Like on a 1 to 5 scale, how key is that to like having a good day for you? I know me, it's like 2.
About a 12.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I get it. I get say it's like that nap. I never understood as a kid. It's like, man, who takes naps? That's dumb. I want to play PlayStation, this and that. I get it, dude. I get it now.
That's when you refuel.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to just kind of refuel, take a second, wake up. It's a little fresh retake of the day, new beginning, if you will. Let's see here. We have some wonderful guests already. I'm going to throw some up. What's up, Kenneth? Always, you're one of those that's like always there at the beginning now, man. I love it. What a wonderful supporter of the channel. And he's honestly taken a lot of my recommendations. I can't stress enough, and he'll see throughout this talk how much I love this book. So what's going on, Kenneth? I'm glad you're here. Somebody's a lucky bastard. For being the VIP. What's up, Tim? Wonderful self-pub author. And Kenneth, the popcorn man. I'd tell you what, if you was here, brother, I'd make you some, but that's on you. You're at your place. Pop that popcorn, man.
It's BYOP. Bring your own popcorn.
Yes, dude. BYOP, dude. That's a new thing now. Official. Let's see. Professor McKay. Oh, hold on. There it is. Professor McKay. You're darn right it is. I'll be talking to him Thursday. I cannot wait, dude.
You are? Nice.
Yeah, Thursday. What's going on, EL? The guy that keeps me in line. It's good to see you. From Texas. John A. Douglas. Smash that like. Oh, thanks, brother. What's going on, man?
It's good to see John in here.
Yes, sir. Another awesome channel and great supporter of the channel, by the way. Josh Eat Books, dude. I've been loving watching your videos, by the way. Intelligent guy. I really believe a lot of what you're talking about, and you talk about it well.
Yeah. What's up, Josh? You had a nice review of ShadowBane earlier in the week. Another one of the people who helped spread the word pretty early on.
Excellent. All right, so I see some more comments. I will get to those in a second, but we're going to start off. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an introduction. So Cal Logan, debut fantasy author of ShadowBane. That's the debut novel. And it has Asian mythology woven, steeped, brewed into it, which I loved. It got released on September 17th of this year, just the other day. Full-time personal trainer and competitive powerlifter. You've been writing since 2017 seriously, and we'll get into that.
Yep.
You're from you live in Chicago?
Yeah, born in the suburbs, and then been living in the city the last 10 years. Actually just moved out of the city because we just bought a place in June. So but we're still close enough to where like I'm still working there every day. So
well, congrats on that, first of all, because getting out of Chicago is safer and has to be much better feel. I've never been. Maybe I have. Maybe I've driven through, but it scares me when people say that they're gonna like go there for some reason. You hear all the news. Oops, 1 second.
It just depends on where you go. There's parts of the city you definitely want to avoid. There's parts that are totally safe. So,
Okay. I love that you said that because a clear vision of the truth is always what I'm after. I've
yeah.
heard people think in winters there, I hear gorgeous.
The winters they look nice if you're inside. If you're outside, it's like every winter I'm like, why do I live here? And then summer happens and I'm like, oh, because there's like a beach and a ton of nice restaurants and like the weather's like perfect for like 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I live in Ohio, so and I grew up between here and up in northern Michigan, and the winters between the two are much different. And I found myself I enjoy a nice winter, not a crazy blizzard, ice everywhere, type of winter, but not an Ohio winter either. It's all muddy. It like snows for 2 or 3 days, and then it's muddy the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Hate
Now
that.
here it just gets cold as shit. Like it's unbelievable how cold it gets.
What does it get down to?
I mean, you'll get down to like the teens or like the single digits pretty easily. Worst I've ever
Yeah,
seen is with like wind chill. It was like -40 or something, and places were like closing. Like don't go outside.
yeah. Throw a
That was
couple
a
of
few years
hot
ago.
water in there, and it just freezes instantly.
Yeah, turn it. Yeah, it was like mist.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your personal self and your life and where you're at and coming from. So as well as living in Chicago, and this is just me kind of repeating what's on his bio on his website that I do have linked below. You live with your wife Taylor and your dachshund Rizzo.
Yep. He's right here. He's hovering right below camera view.
I see he's your baby, man.
He's codependent. Like if he's like 5 feet away from you, he's like, that's not going to work. Like I need to be right up in your space.
Like I need to feel.
Yeah,
You need to be right here.
yeah, and I'm the only one home right now, so he'll jump out of my lap when his mom gets home. But for right now, he's like, all right, this one parent, like I'm sitting on his lap.
There's been a few lives I've had with multiple authors where the dog was an absolutely wonderful part. So you make that lovely Rizzo part of whatever you'd like. It's never an interruption. He is just authentically here, and I love it.
Oh, I see his head. All right, I'm just gonna pull him up real quick.
What's up, Rizzo?
There he
Beautiful.
is.
What's going on, dude? Love it.
Yeah, so
So tell us, first off, we'll start here. And for those who don't know or do know, it's I start in different places depending on who I'm talking with. Being that this is your debut novel, I want to start with the novel, and then we'll take a couple steps back as far as your beginnings and influences and stuff like that. So,
right.
first off, tell us about ShadowBane. Go into the genre, the subgenres, and a synopsis of the story for those who don't know.
So ShadowBane follows two twins named Shura and Jin, who are basically mercenary demon hunters in a world that's modeled off of feudal Japan. A lot of times when we think feudal Japan, we're thinking Edo period. In this case, takes place during the Sengoku period, which is basically a period of about 200 years where there was nothing but civil war. If you've watched the show Shogun on FX, that takes place near the end of this time period, and then that victory that you see play out in Shogun actually leads to the Edo period. So this takes place in just an alternate world that is modeled off that period.
I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that. So, what are and it may be obvious, but we're still going to go into it. What would you call the subgenre? Well, the main genre, and then what would you classify some subgenres, just to let everybody have that personal taste? What you feel your book covers.
So on the broadest level, it's epic fantasy. It does have the large scale appeal. And then if I had to put it into one subgenre, it would definitely be grimdark. I originally was not sure how dark it was going to get, and so I was kind of initially I was kind of straddling the line between epic fantasy and grimdark. And there was a point where I was like, all right, man, just lean in. This is already getting halfway through, and I'm like, all right, this is already getting super brutal. Just go all in.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say the characters. I feel like the characters for me to call a novel grimdark, it has to be led by the characters, man. Especially Jin. You get to know him, and he's a good dude to have on your side. But he's not a sunshine kind of guy. But I definitely want him on my side.
Yeah, he's like you want on your team, but he's also a frustrating teammate.
Right.
Like half the stuff he does, you're like, that was not necessary.
I also like how you kind of did. I don't know if it was necessarily inner dialogue, but the conversations between Shura and Jin are first authentic as far as you knowing that they're related, especially brother and sister. But that also brings in that aspect to where I'm going to be the most honest with my sister, right? Rather than like a buddy, a random buddy. So you get that. It's not something that Jin would say to just anybody. Even Wallace sometimes, which is another wonderful character. What Shura and Jin talk about, which I think reveals both of their characters so well, is their dialogue between one another.
So I'm glad you picked up on that. And it's one of the things I try to do with and not only what he says, like how he kind of speaks differently with Shura and Wallace, but also then his internal monologue. Like there's a point, you know, kind of early on where Wallace is like he mentions that like no one's better off if you just sit around talking. Like you have to do something. And Wallace, he's like, oh, he's like, is that why people? He's like, that way you do this? Like people are better off. And Jin gets kind of sour and kind of dodges the question. He's like, why the fuck else would I be doing this? And you know, and internally, it's like he does think about his responsibility and his duty. He doesn't speak of it out loud for like 200 pages, because he, you know, there's a huge difference between what he says and whom he says it and what he thinks.
Yeah,
and then Shura gets that too, but hers is more like you see how she can be a little. She holds back a lot of what she means, or especially when she's confronted with people who are more powerful than her.
And I think you captured male and female. Like it seemed authentic. You know, sometimes men, we will say, no matter what it is, even if it's good, bad, other, what people think, it doesn't matter. We'll say it. And you see that Shura kind of does that when she has to, but is also strategic and what she says. So the depth of character is something I picked up very early. And I loved it, man. So real quick before I forget, and we'll continue on this, but there's some wonderful people chiming in, and I want to show that to you because that's got to be so cool as especially as a debut author. All right, so where did you come from? Where did you go, Cotton Eye Joe? I don't know why I threw that up there. You're messing me up, John. I thought that was a true question, bro. 1 second.
I think that was in reference to like ask because you talked about where I came from and where I'm at now, like when we were talking about Chicago and everything.
He's a deep guy, John. You often go over my head in the moment, but after I think of, I'm like trying to fall asleep. I'm like, that's why he threw that up there. So you're keeping me up at night, John.
Metaphors.
Yeah, dude. I saw one. Oh, here we go. Kay, it's so nice to see you here. It's been a while since we've talked and blah blah blah. I've been here and there, but it's nice to see you here. Congrats on the release, she says.
Thank you, Kay. I appreciate it.
She's awesome. I love her channel, and she does, you know, wonderful interviews as well. Ken, man, that is like the epitome of why I'm here, is to help people. So saying that is just thank you so much. All right. Oh wow, Josh, I love that, dude, and I agree with you. Contender for top books of 2024 so far. It's impressive what you did with your first novel, man, in multiple ways. And I'll get to a couple other. The writing obviously is what takes the front seat, but you know, I'll just get into it now since we're kind of talking about it. It's like you sent me this like early, this novel, and and I talk about this because it's super important to me, and I feel like so many other people have to feel that way. Top materials. I don't know what this kind of material is, but I only have 3 or 4 books that are this naked hardcover material. It's superior to everything. It's just, it feels nice in the hand. The formatting of your novel is wonderful. The cover art's wonderful. I don't know. It's just, it blew me away that this was your first novel, and the first time doing this stuff, you did it right. You're setting the example.
Thanks, man. I just stumbled into it. I was Googling stuff obsessively, like how to do this, how to do that. And so the one you're holding comes through Ingram because I really wanted a dust jacket, and so even though I have a case laminate version available on Amazon because some people like that, I wanted to find a way to just to be able to get a dust jacket edition to people who want it, and so that's so that's available as well. You just have to like go directly to their website. It's not on Amazon because that's all. Like that's what my favorite format is, the hardcover with the dust jacket, and I was like. And it looks so nice on the shelf. I was like, I gotta find a way to make one of these.
So where do people go to get the dust jacket version? Could you repeat that again?
So that's on my website. On the tab that says ShadowBane, you'll see links to purchase like the ebook, the paperback, the stuff from Amazon, and then there's a separate one, and it'll specify it's the one with the dust jacket, and that takes you to Ingram, and you can purchase directly from there.
Highly recommend that. I mean, other than what I've said, it just that's what it is. It's just beautiful. It feels good when I'm reading it. I feel like I'm reading. There's no separation. If somebody didn't know about self-publishing and publishing, Walmart, when they go to Walmart, knowing the difference, there would be zero question. So I want to put an emphasis on that, man. You knocked it out of the park. It's great. So who did your cover art?
His name's Andre Bat. I found him through 99 Designs. I had originally hosted a design contest, and I was not happy with the quality of submissions I was getting. And part of that was just on me. I put too much in the prompt. The experience that I had working with Andre kind of taught me that like less is more sometimes, and you can let if the artist is like professional, you can let them do their work. So I started browsing through portfolios manually. I found his artwork was insane. And I was like, this is my guy. So I messaged him and I told him about the concept, and he was like, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. So he's asked me about my ideas and whatnot. And so you read the book. So you remember like the giant like effigy of Sotoku Tenno that they find outside the temple, right?
How could I forget?
So I wanted that to be like the cover image. So I was originally thinking just like one thing, right? But he pointed out, he's like, that's a really cool image. He's like, but it might not cue readers into what the genre is. He's like, so, and he's asking more and more questions about it and like thematically and what the plot entails and stuff. And then he's like, what if I just draw your main characters fighting a ton of demons? I was like, that works. And I was a little nervous because it's kind of, is an ambitious concept just to draw like a full battle scene. And he did that. And then just to kind of like, show me, like put me in my place a little bit, he threw the statue on the back, just like as you can have that too. So yeah, he did an awesome job. And after I saw his initial sketch, I was like, all right, man, I'm sold. Like there's my card. Let's run with this.
Take this money now, dude.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in a couple ways. Most of the novels that I'm like, oh, this is a great cover, isn't the kind of cover you have. I think something simple, something symbolic, something that gives you a little bit of a taste. But when that one novel and artist collide and recognize that opportunity to create a special cover like this, where there's action, where they're in the middle of something, you see some characters, it gives you that Asian feel. It does. It gives you the dark fantasy feel. You see they're fighting demons. You unquestionably, that's what they're doing if you look at it, just for like half a second. And then the beautiful, I wish I could remember the name of these buildings, but they're gorgeous.
Like the houses, they're called Minka.
Yeah, dude, yeah. I love that. I love the look of those. So I guess what I'm saying is there aren't many covers in which I see an action scene and I'm like, oh, that's a great cover. But it was pulled off so well that I think it did exactly what it needed to do for your novel and your story. It makes 100% sense after reading the book why this is the cover quickly, quickly.
Yeah. So, and that's what I like. Like he really took the time to understand the vision and then he executed it super well. So even though it wasn't what I had anticipated going into it first, that's like I ended up super happy with it. So kind of like you said, I was surprised with where it went, but that's the advantage of like working with a professional who really knows what they're doing.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but did that take a little bit of trust and say, hey, I'm going to hand you the reins real quick, go with it because I trust you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I was nervous, but like once I saw his sketches and I saw his attention to detail throughout the process. So, and I had already seen his portfolio, so I knew the raw skill was there. And if he put, the time and effort into like really capturing it, which he absolutely did, then, I knew I was in good hands. And then considering how like aggressively the book opens, I'm actually kind of glad that the cover has this battle on it. Just so people understand what they're getting in, like what they're in for. Like there's a dude chopping Demon's head off on the cover. Like it's the novel's pretty violent and dark.
Yeah. I think it did a wonderful job. And my other half chimed in here. And I think she's so right. Stupid. We have bees in Ohio really bad right now, and they've gotten in the house somehow. So I'm terrified of bees. So I run away from them. but during this live, I'm going to man up and just swat them away. Anyway, my wife, quality, small details. She's heard me obsess over the quality of this a million times. When it came in the mail, I'm like, look at this. When an author puts extra effort into their book, it makes me want to invest my time reading it more than a cheap looking one. Yes, 100%. So, by the way, on the back, it does say his name, Andre Batbot, however you say it. Wonderful job. I'm going to put his links when I find them right after we're done here.
Oh, definitely.
Below this in the video as well.
Yeah. I told him, I was like, hey man, I was like, put your name on the back. I was like, you gotta get it on there.
Great to say. I think that's a very honorable too. That represented how much you loved his work. EL says quality is a sign of profession. 100%, plain and simple. There it is. So, still talking about the story. Where did you kind of get the inspiration to tell this exact story? When did you kind of click for you? What was it that made it click?
So the original concept came out of a nightmare I had, where basically our house like was being attacked by demons. And there's this like I get sleep paralysis sometimes, and so like my wife likes to joke that like I'm being like attacked by demons.
That's terrifying.
It is, yeah. I'm used to it enough now where like after I like stop panicking, I'm like, okay, like that's what that was. Like I can go back to sleep.
But in this case, for getting there.
Yeah, in the moment you don't realize what's happening. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
So in this case, it was like a regular nightmare, and it's usually like me. In this case, they were like I was this is in the dream, right? But I'm standing in my kitchen, and then like I just get this like terrible feeling of dread that like something awful is about to happen, and then I realize that like it's like, oh, like it's happening, but I realize they're going after my wife, not me, and so I'm like trying to break down like the bedroom door. Yeah, this is all a dream, folks. But like I'm trying to push open the door, and like I'm like fuming angry, and I wake up and I'm like pushing myself halfway off the bed, and like like my heart rate is jacked, and Rizzo starts freaking out and starts like howling and barking. So I think someone
stupid as bee.
I see the bees are coming for you.
Go ahead.
So Rizzo starts freaking out. So I thought someone was like coming into the house or something. So I get up and check. It's fine. It's quiet. I'm like rattled, but I go back to sleep. And then Rizzo does something he's never done before. He usually sleeps like between us, like next to us. And he just lays his paws on my chest and just starts like staring through the door. And he stays like that for like an hour. And that freaked me out more than the dream itself, because he's never done that before or since. And so they say like animals can see or sense like otherworldly entities and stuff. And so I was like, what if like, there's like a demon hunter guy who had a dog or something. And then that was the initial spark. And then that changed to like, okay, like let's do like twins. And then I wanted a better setting because Western demon mythology is very like Christianity based. And I just don't know enough about like theology and stuff to really do that justice. And I just wanted to explore a different setting. So I was already interested in feudal Japan.
Got him. No, I didn't. Maybe I didn't. Stupid ass bee, dude. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting you, bro.
That's all right. It's entertaining for me to watch.
I'm betting. I'm scared over here. I was traumatized as a little kid, dude. I got stung like 8 times on the head and in the eyes and everything, bro.
Oh yeah.
So I'm over here like flipping out. But go ahead.
No, I know how it is. And so at that point, that gave me the setting I wanted to work with. Japanese mythology, like the stuff I was able to pull from there, like that just scratches the surface. Like their mythology goes so hard. It's fascinating. And so once I started doing a little bit of research, I was like, all right, there's my setting. And then the twin concept came about because I was like, well, if it's just a dude and his dog, like he doesn't really have anyone to talk to. There's no dynamics to play off of. So that turned into twins. And then the dog became an 800-pound white Siberian tiger.
Was his name Finn?
Yeah. And so that's and that that actually obviously like Americans are gonna pronounce that as like fang, right? And so that's actually a Chinese word. It's feng. It's like feng shui, and it means wind.
I was close.
Yeah. And that's why but I liked the like phonetics of fang because I wanted to make it like kind of like accessible. And that's why Jin and Shore's names are a lot shorter than a lot of the other Japanese names in the book, just to make it like not a headache every time you're hearing their names. But then I wanted like that play on words with Fang's name.
I love that. And it kind of like the novel opens up with a scene that I won't spoil for anybody, but you get to meet him in the best way I think that you can, because you meet him and then you feel bad for a minute. Like, there's things happening, and you gain this sense of empathy for Feng, and for an animal companion. Most of the novels I've read, other than one that I'm a huge fan of, which is a James Rollins, the Moonlight Saga or the Moonfall Saga, didn't have animal companions, and I hear about it all the time being a reviewer, and I really wanted to experience that. So that was just another box that I got to check. Was getting to enjoy an animal companion, because I really grew close, man. I have this vision of Fang, and it really just meets my expectation and exceeds it reading about him.
Yeah, I'm glad. He was tough to characterize at first, and I kind of played back and forth with like how smart to make him, and then I kind of figured where I wanted to take that, and just I figured like the more intelligent he was, the more I could kind of like give him some non-animal quirks that are like anthropomorphize him a little bit to make him a little more like empathetic instead of just being like a silent animal.
Yeah, because I feel like, and this isn't from experience, I feel when I hear animal companion, the animal companion is going to act very much like an animal in real life. Let's just say, in my head, since I haven't read a lot of those novels with animal companions, I think of a dog acting like a dog. And this in this novel, this version of an animal companion, you get that plus what you said, which is kind of leading into the question: was it hard to make that decision to make Fang a lot more intelligent, or did you kind of have to juggle, keep it authentic to what a real animal, or we're in a fantasy book, let's go kind of all out, or did you stay in the middle?
I think I stayed in the middle, like, because on one hand you have like, can he talk? And I was like, nah, that seems weird.
I love that decision.
But then I was like, okay, but if I play him as just like an actual, just straight up like wild tiger, there's no book, because Shura and Jin get eaten. So before the story ever takes place. So
sure.
So I kind of settled on a like hyper intelligent that like creature that kind of has like a empathetic bond with the two main characters, particularly Shura. But he's but doesn't communicate verbally, but he still like communicates, like, and so Shura has these like one-sided conversations, and he's like growling or like grumbling back, and she's like, I know, like, and she's talking the way I talk to my dog, basically, where you just like if you ever had a pet, like you just sit there like shooting the shit with your dog for like 10 minutes, and it's a one-sided conversation, but it still feels like you're still bonding with them, you're still talking to them,
and that's what I think you nailed it. Regardless if we're talking about a dog in real life, it's like you do get a sense that they catch the gist of what maybe you're saying, because of the way we say it, and you get a lot of that. I love that you kind of went in the middle with it, because it's realistic, and then there's that slightly fantastic part that we expect in a fantasy book, but it doesn't go to like what you said. You made the decision not to make him talk, and it kind of leaves a little bit of a mystery also to maybe what he's thinking during whatever, an action scene, or when he's at the beginning of the novel, how he's feeling then. It leaves you with a quite unsure. What am I trying to say? You're unsure of exactly how he feels, but you have a general sense. And I think that that's much better of a read, I guess, as a reader, than just to say, okay, he's a lion and he talks, or he doesn't give any sense of conversation. Yeah. It was perfect. I love that part. So a nightmare, wow, that's first of all scary, because I've never had the paralysis, but I've had nightmares about having those kind of nightmares, just not being able to kind of. But it led into creativity. It gave you one hell of a story. So I guess you don't regret it, or do you?
No, not at all. I was working on a different project at the time, and that one I kind of just like abandoned like a third of the way through because I was struggling. I'll come back to it, but this is one where I just had such a clear vision, and the other one I was like banging my head against a wall, and I was like, all right, like I'm gonna run with the thing that just like the story is like telling itself in my head.
Carpe diem, man. That's what you did. You seized the day. You took that for a debut novel. That just, for me, not having a debut novel that I do want to have one day, having an idea come into your life, into your head, into your imagination that steals the spotlight in an organic way. Man, I think that is a great story for a debut novel, especially. So I
Thanks, man.
appreciate you sharing that, man. Because sounds a little scary, but it paid off.
Yeah, I'll take one of those. Every couple of years if it leads me to have something that that I really enjoy writing.
Right. What's
What's
going
up,
on,
Shane?
Shane? Good to see you here, brother. What's up, Jim? It's been a while since I've seen you, brother. The guy that actually came up with the phrase "fear the beard," at least for my channel. He's like, you know what? I think that's that, and it is. That's what stuck. Fear the beard. What's going on, Jim? I'm so glad you're here. And Kenneth, what's going on? Again, I know you've been here. Okay, I'm sold on this book. I know you would be, man.
Glad to hear.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I don't. Well, I do have your website below, so I do have the link to the dust jacket version.
Perfect.
Just you have to go straight to the book section. All
yeah,
right.
I think my homing page actually is now the landing page for ShadowBane, and then there's just the button at the bottom of the page that's the one that says dust jacket, and it takes you to the purchase page.
There it is, even easier. Wonderful. So yeah, if you're like able to choose between the two guys, no doubt go through the dust jacket. So taking a little step back now, like I told you we would, is when did you notice or when do you remember falling in love with literature? Were you young?
Oh yeah. So I was I was reading ever since like I could. And I remember like writing stuff for fun. I tried to write like short, scary stories when I was really young. I think like the first thing I ever wrote for fun was I basically just like co-opted the plot from Chrono Trigger, which like was a game I was obsessed with when I was like 5 because I had an older brother and he was obsessed with it. And I just wrote a really awesome, not at all abridged, like one pager of the story that definitely was logically coherent for a 5-year-old,
Yeah. No, that's one hell of a starting period.
But it was just I've always liked doing that, and I wrote my first book when I was 17. It was like a dumpster manuscript, one of those. It was horrible. It was self-indulgent and
just a stepping stone
nonsense. Yeah. I got like they say like your first million words are really bad. I got a quarter of them out in one book.
There you go.
And then I wrote on and off through college, and then I was 25. And that's when I was like, all right, like I've been doing this kind of like for fun for like 20 years on and off. Like, I think if I actually work on it, I can get better at it. Like, I'm going to take this really seriously.
So when you were 25, it was 2017?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to guess your age. And I think we're the exact same age. If my quick math does right. I was born in 90.
91. So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like young for I just turned 33 earlier this summer.
My dude. See, the thing is you still have hair, man. So I don't understand. Stupid ass B.
Because I don't have 4 kids.
Well, I have to not lie to you. Hold on. This is embarrassing, guys, but your boy ain't about to get stung by no damn bee. All right. He's gone for the time being. I lost my hair when I was like 16. For real. Like it was funny. My buddies were like, you're going bald. And I thought they were just messing with me. No, they were just warning me. I didn't catch it. But hey, you know what? I'm thankful for it now. I ain't got to do no hairdos and all that stuff. But yeah, man, we're about the same age. And that's cool. And it plays a part too, because I think that has a lot to do why I love the novel so much. We have a lot of the same points of view. We grew up with the same kinds of influences. You took your turn, I took my turn, and it kind of clashes in a wonderful way.
Yeah, I think I know you're a big metal fan, and like internally, I was like, I have to make this book like metal as hell. So I feel like I don't know, but like I feel like a lot of people who like it end up like kind of like that same type of music, and I think it's just another thing that like if it appeals to party A, it probably appeals to party B, or like with that particular interest.
Yeah, no, I've found a connection between fantasy or sci-fi lovers and even horror or other stuff like that. That metal is a connection point. It's something we all really enjoy, and I think that I don't know really why we all Hold on 1 second. Stupid ass bee. I'm getting you, bro.
We got another Chrono Trigger fan in the chat.
What is it? Yeah.
Josh,
go on that.
How do I highlight this? Can I pull Chrono Trigger 10 out of 10? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, what does that mean? I didn't understand that.
Oh, that's a video game. It's like a video game that came out like 1994.
Chrono
Trigger.
Chrono.
Yeah.
So what was it for? Was it for
like Super Nintendo?
Oh, dude,
super old school. That was like the game that I basically just like wrote like a really terrible one pager of the plot when I was 5 years old. Like, oh, like I'm writing this story for fun, and I just copied the exact video game thing, but like way worse because I was 5. So that's the game that he was talking about.
Dude, I feel like I've played it. I just don't know the name. Because I went through like, and I'm sure we all kind of did at this age. It's like Super Nintendo was the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? And I cannot remember the name. Was it a shooter game?
No, it's like an RPG, like a classic like Japanese RPG.
I could name one, and that's Zelda. So I honestly don't know what it is, and I have to look it up now, and I have to like buy a Super Nintendo and play it now because I think that would be excellent.
100% worth it.
Yeah, dude. All right. So with those inspirations, you know, being as young as you were and gaining the inspirations you did, who were those authors or books that really caught you, who really just kind of took your imagination for a spin?
So the first fantasy book I ever got into, or fantasy like author, was Brian Jacques who writes Redwall. So you can see him on my shelf there. But I fell in love with those books as a kid, and that was my first step into fantasy. I read a ton of R.L. Stein as well. So I did grow up reading a good bit of horror and suspense. If I were to pick a second genre to write in, it would probably be that. But for right now, it's for sure. Because I think there's some overlap with fantasy. And
it does. It overlaps so well, dude. I got that bitch. I got him.
Nice.
I'm sorry I had to use your book. I had to, but I'll clean it up.
Dude, that's fine. You know, like bees are basically real life demons. So the book is just doing what it's there for.
It did. So we're over me being a sissy, and I can pay more attention now. I'm so sorry about that, guys. Real life happens. So that's why, you know, I get embarrassed sometimes, but being live, dude, is I think the most authentic thing because people are in the moment. You get to talk about your real answers, right? Sometimes you have to dodge bees. Fuck it.
That's probably a first on the show, right?
It's the very first time. Yeah, dude. Mark it in the calendar. I'll remember this till I die. Excellent. So childhood
influences. So we're talking about like Redwall. Another. Okay, so Josh and I probably had the same childhood because Redwall was also huge for him. So yeah, Josh, no wonder you like ShadowBane, man. And then I got into Aragon as well. Right as a kid, you know, and that was my first kind of big like dragon-based fantasy. And then as a teenager, I found R.A. Salvatore and the Legend of Drizzt series, and you can see all those over that shoulder, lying on that shelf.
Dude, there's a shit ton of those.
Yeah, that was the series that at that point I was like, all right, like I'm fully in on this genre. And then that was all stuff I read through like high school and early adulthood. And then when I was 25, or maybe a little younger, mid 20s, I was in like Walmart or something, and I was going out of town, and I just like needed a book, and I picked a book up out of like the bin, right? And it was the second book in a series, and I didn't even realize that at the time, but it was The Sword of the North by Luke Skull. And then so I'm gonna lean aside real quick, so you can see like my shelf of honor in the middle. So there's Joe Abercrombie there, there's Luke Skull up there, there's Game of Thrones up there. So like my all-time favorite stuff is like in the middle. And that was my first introduction to grimdark. And
like great introduction.
Yeah. You like Luke Skull?
I love Abercrombie, but Skull's on my list now.
Nice. So I got into Abercrombie after Skull. But like the writing was like really like terse and like cutting. Like the prose was awesome. The characters were just really like unique and horribly flawed. They introduced this like super badass warrior, but he's trying to piss out a kidney stone. So you see him like at his most embarrassing.
have you pissed out a kidney stone?
No.
I have, and I know how badass that is, bro. It brings you to your knees, dude.
But it's just funny because it's like this hardcore warrior, and he's in this like most like embarrassing, like, you know, like at his weakest.
No, sir. There's no man badass enough to get through a kidney stone without going to his knees.
So yeah, so he has a lot of clever character work like that, and then the world would just seem so like terrible and like gritty and dirty.
So how do you spell this last name? Because this is the next book I'm picking up is something by him.
Scull.
Scull. Why have I, dude? This sounds like legitimately what I need.
It's awesome. His first book is called The Grimm Company, and then The Sword of the North is a sequel to that, and then there's a third one.
I don't know why I said I didn't. I'm listening to The Grimm Company right now. I just didn't recognize that that was the author. I'm excited to get. I'm only like in the first 10 pages though, so I'm pumped to get into it.
It's great, man. I love that trilogy. And then the like the way it ends is so cool. It's like I don't want to say anything else, but like man, that ending was just incredible.
The name, the title.
So yeah, it's definitely a tribute to Black Company, Glenn Cook. But yeah, it's a great series. And then I was like, oh, there's a whole genre where like the people are selfish and act in their own interests, and like just being a good guy doesn't mean you survive. Like that's cool. Like let's check this out. And I got into Joe Abercrombie, and then I was like, oh, like there's a name for this genre, like grimdark. Like, yep, I'm in. Like that's my favorite thing now.
So, do you feel that? I think you have a really authentic viewpoint as far as knowing what a grimdark novel is. I do, because I just dove into Grimm Company, and I picked it up because of was Black Company by Glenn Cook.
That was like that was kind of like the godfather of grimdark, like back in I want to say like the 80s.
I was just make sure I had the name right. The Black Company.
Yeah.
And I know there was quite a few of those. And being, I don't know if you know this, but I didn't start reading at all until I was 29. Being close to the same age as me, I haven't been reading for very long, like 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of learning and characters, plots, subplots, stuff like that. Because it's a little bit of a learning curve when you've never done it for 29 years. I am attracted to the stories that do what I want to do inside as a selfish human, or what I would do in that situation, but don't have that conscious, like the id and the it, like it in this the ego, whatever, super ego, all that. It's like they don't have that. It just go with the selfish, violent, self-serving option. So to kind of experience that without the repercussions it would have in real life, it's so fun to read.
I think that's so I think you touched on something that's a lot of times people say that kind of like the not the evil characters, but the morally gray characters, or the ones who are can have moments of like selfishness or cruelty or weakness, like that they're kind of more relatable or more interesting. And I think it's because like we've all probably done things that we like regret, or where we feel like we came up short or made like a shitty decision, right? And so those characters' failings feel relatable because like we can put ourselves in their shoes, versus like it's probably fewer and far times between when we've done like acted completely selflessly and like in a noble and heroic way,
like a hero,
like with massive stakes. So I think it's easier to identify with these morally gray characters. And I think I still love a good hero character, right? I still like root for them when I read them. But I think it's just easier to relate to these like flawed, like selfish people.
That's how we're born.
Yeah.
We're born flawed. So we just immediately kind of find that likeness. They just choose to continue with it and kind of like, I don't give a shit,
Yeah.
And that's that. Don't you wish sometimes you could be that way?
That's what makes Jin so fun to write, is like, it's like, oh, like if I had someone who was like, hey, like I have a job for you. And I was like, oh, I already have a job. Thanks. And they're like subtly threatening you. Like, it'd be nice to tell them like to piss off, or like,
Well, there's one line where you're like, I'd rather stick my dick in a beehive than do that. And I died, bro. I died. I believe it was when Wallace or Shura goes on like on a walk or something. It's like, I'm just like reading. I'm sensing the darkness. There's some stuff coming.
She wants.
And I read "Stick My Dick in a Beehive." And I'm like, this is the right book for me.
Yeah, she wants to pray, and he like he thinks the gods are dead and everything, and so he just sees it as like utterly pointless and like almost like performative. So he's just like, that's just it, and that's him saying it in the way that he would say it.
That's him being
an asshole.
Yeah. I love that, dude. That was a great character moment for me. So as far as you started writing seriously at 25 in 2017. What did you initially feel like your publishing journey would look like, and what does it look like? As far as, did you query, did you try to go for a publisher and whatnot? Yeah, go ahead.
So I started writing in epic fantasy, which is called Sundering, and my goal was to get traditionally published. And I, at the time, like I didn't know enough about writing itself or the business aspect of it. So even though I was really trying to work on the craft and like become a better writer, you still have to apply that and practice it over a period of years before you like learn how to, write character arcs and before you understand narrative structure and like when to bend rules and not. And so I queried it before it was way before it was ready. Got a bunch of rejections. Did a pitch.
So you did pitch. Query.
Yes. And at one point I was actually agented, and I'll get to that in a minute here.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a PitMad pitch and got after a little bit back and forth, I got an offer from a small press, but there was like no advance and the royalties were really small. And at the time I was like, oh my God, like I did it, like I'm gonna be published.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other author who he works out at the gym that I work at. And so, I was like, hey, can I buy you a coffee? And can I have you explain some of this to me? Like, I don't know anything about this. And so he did. And he basically explained, he's like, this is the language of a press that's very risk averse. He's like, they're not giving you an advance. Like, he's like, they're going to charge you, make you pay for your own author copies. He's like, this is the language of a publisher who doesn't expect to sell a lot of books. He's like, it's not a vanity press. He's like, they're not trying to pay you, or they're not trying to make you pay them or anything to be published itself. He's like, but it's just the language of someone who's so concerned with protecting their bottom line that they're probably not going to put a lot of resources behind you. And he just kind of like was like, are you just trying to be published? Do you want to like make money off this? Like, what's the reason that's driving you? And he kind of called me out and set me straight. He's like, look, he's like, based on what I told him, right? Which is like, I would obviously like the book too. Like, I want a good book out there that people like identify with and resonate with.
Yeah.
It's not just money, but obviously like, it has to reach an audience to sell so that I can then like make a career out of this and write more stories.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, he's like, if you take this deal, he's like, I think you're settling. He's like, this is just, you're trying to get like the validation of being published. He's like, but this isn't going to get you where you want. He's like, it's not really my business. He's like, it's your decision. He's like, but that's my perspective. So I turned the deal down. And there was a point where he was kind of like, he's like, look, if you're getting offers from small presses, but not like bigger ones, he's like, that means he's like, your work is like, it's good, but it's not good enough. He's like, you're just not there yet. He's like, so if you still have agents on your list, he's like, go back. He's like, make your work better. He's like, improve your product. He's like, because that's what it is. He's like, you're competing with TV and books and magazines and social media and podcasts and all the stuff that people give their attention to. He's like, that's what you're up there with if you're trying to like make something that is engaging with people. He's like, improve your work. He's like, and then go and do whatever it takes to get one of those agents. And he said this verbatim. He's like, go get some sand in your crotch. He's like, go get pissed off. He's like, and do the work. And so I did get pissed off at myself because I realized I'd been cutting corners. And he set me straight at the right time. So I went back and rewrote that book and like revised it heavily. And at that point, the guy who's the acquiring editor for that small press had actually switched to agenting. We'd kept in touch a little bit. This took like over the next like 2 years or so. And he said that he switched to agenting because he wanted to like represent authors instead of the other side of the table. He said like what happened with me was kind of one of those reasons where he's like, this is a good story. He's like, that I believed in. He's like, it was frustrating to see them like not want to even give you like a marketing budget or a small advance or something. So then he ended up signing me as a client. That book, Sundering, went on sub. At that point, it got to an acquisitions meeting with Blackstone. So they took it like to the table, and then marketing shot it down, was like, we'd rather take on, we don't want to take on debut author. We want to take on, we want to release this over the next 2 years to be existing established fantasy authors.
Yeah.
So that got shut down. And then this is around the time when I started writing ShadowBane. And then my agent ended up leaving the industry. About 2 months after I finished ShadowBane, I had sent it to him. So that was like the first 4 or 5 years basically that I was writing.
So I just wanted to make sure you were done on that top. Are you finished with that part? Because I have a lot to say, but I don't want to interrupt you.
That's like that's basically the first like 5 years. And then after that was just playing Elden Ring and figuring out what the hell I was going to do. And then eventually deciding to self-pub.
Okay. So a couple things. First, man, I talk about little nuggets of gold on my channel when they happen. That story was it. That's what I'm after. That publishing story told your personal story, gave wonderful information, gave some kind of parts in your life where it was hard to make a decision, and some things that you had to look inside yourself and, again, make a decision. So here, the validation of being a published author, that's not what you were after. That friend, dude, that friend was a true one. He's a real motherfucker, dude.
And he and I didn't even hang out outside of work. Like, he would just lift weights and I'd talk to him sometimes. And then he just gave me just stabbed me with like raw honesty.
Real as fuck, dude.
The exact perspective I needed. It was awesome.
I'm so glad that you had that interaction, because I think that this story wouldn't be what it is if you wouldn't have. So you weren't after just, I want the validation of just saying I've done it. No, you wanted something that could be a career, something people would love and relate to. So you did soul searching, you bettered your product, because that's what it is at the end of the day. This is a passion. This is creative, but it also has to be your product. And I think that is a wonderful point for people who want to do this, not just for the love of writing. They want to make money, because that is, if you can write full time for a career, that sounds like the dream of most people I talk to.
That's when the floodgates open, right? And then at that point you can put like your whole self into it. Yeah,
100%. I'm just so thankful for that story, because I'm going to listen to that 1,000 times because I love it. Great friend. And this agent, he seems like a good guy that kind of noticed a part of the publishing world that he didn't necessarily like, and it sounds like he got out of there.
Yeah, he was a great guy. And he ended up leaving the industry. Just he decided to switch career paths, and no hard feelings whatsoever. I wanted to get to some of these questions in the chat, but another note about him, and he was really nice to work with, because he really understood. The title of my first book was Sundering, and he really understood that down to its core. And this kind of ties into Tim's question here. So I basically rewrote from page 1. I did not ever delete an entire chapter and then rewrite it from scratch, but at times I was deleting entire pages and then rewriting them, keeping like what little bits were workable. But it basically did a full page 1 to page 400 line by line rewrite.
Wow.
Did a second round of revisions. Queried him. He gave me an exclusive R&R, so he gave me like an hour's worth of notes. So even though he knew me, and liked the story, he's like,
"What's an R&R?"
Revise and resubmit.
Okay.
So then he gave me more notes, and he's basically like, "This is the test." He's like, "Here are my notes. If you pull this off, we'll sign you." And that included he was like, "These two characters are way underdeveloped. This POV is unnecessary. We cut this entirely. This needs to tie in better with the main plot. This character is introduced way too late. Let's get him in earlier, find something for them to do, and connect them more with these other characters." So he was really helping me understand narrative structure and pacing. And so I did that. So that was probably at that point, the third round of revisions, and then did a small check after that, just to make sure some small details were right. And then that's the point where then we started to query approach editors.
Okay. Wow, man.
And the other funny thing too was, and he helped give me some really good insight. He opens the call. He goes, "Hey man," he goes, "before we get to get down to things, I got to ask." He goes, "Did you used to fight people or something?" And I laughed. I was like, "I trained in MMA and for a while and wrestled before that. And I've done some boxing and stuff. What's up?" And he's like, "The fight scenes are," he's like, "they're really good." He's like, "They're really intense." And he basically said, he's like, "I think that can be your brand as an author." He's like, "I want you to lean into that more." He's like, "I want you to make them more visceral and more brutal." And
no, you did that.
And I almost asked him, there's a part in that book where someone gets torn in half. And I was like, "Did you get to that part yet?" I was like, "'Cause it's already pretty bloody." But he was like,
just Hey, have you gotten here yet? Because
Yeah, but he picked up on something where he's like, this is a strength of yours as a writer. He's like, you should lean into that. And and I took his advice.
wow, man, there's so many wonderful points that you touched on that uh, I'm just thankful for it, because that is real life situations happening in real life, having real life consequences, real life choices being made. This isn't wondering, this isn't questionable. That's your experience. And man, that is telling. And I'll tell you why. It's like so many of us, and I say us because me, I want to write, man. It's not something I've always wanted to do, but it's still somewhat new to me. So to hear that experience teaches me a whole lot of what to expect, what to kind of work on a little bit before I get to the points where you spoke about. And there's so many other people that will catch that as well, man. Jim said, who was your editor?
My editor or my agent?
Answer that, Bubba, down in the comment, and we'll ask him. Until he does, by the way, your book's covered in Mylar, and that bad boy's shiny and all good now, by the way.
I see that.
That V ain't gonna stay there long.
I'll just answer both. So the guy I was talking about, the agent who signed me and gave me those great notes, his name was Pat Munnelly, and he was with Bond Literary at the time, and he's since moved on from the publishing industry, and then just in case this was about the editor for ShadowBane, his name's Jason Letts, and I found him on Reedsy, and he was like, I love grimdark. He's like, I've lived in Japan, so I know the mythology. He's
perfect.
He's like, I like your writing style. He's like, this is right up my alley. And I was like, all right, that's a fit. We're doing this.
100% fit. Like, how was it to get that message? Like, hey, I've been there. I'll know what you're talking about, and better yet, if there's something that you may have gotten wrong, I'll know how to fix it.
Yeah, and he was excellent too. Like, not just on like the comic goes here and not there, but talking about like ways to open and close chapters that are not repetitive, kind of ways to just tie the small beats of the narrative in a little better with each other. He had moments where he was really good at condensing or picking up on when there were inefficiencies with the language. There's some stuff he would circle and he'd be like, you can do better. So he was really good at just taking the work to the next level,
and not letting you, like you said at the beginning, kind of like cut corners, because we all don't maybe intend to do that, but then somebody kind of brings up in a specific, well, let's just say, obviously a novel, it's like right here, you don't really notice that maybe that there was a corner cut. And of course, this is me speculating. I don't know.
It's like a blind spot. You just don't see, for example, like I had this, like 3 of Jin's back-to-back chapters all end on a similar like sentiment. And he's like, this is getting repetitive. He's like, you need to end these other 2 chapters in a different way so that it feels like there's forward progression in the narrative and not just Jin like ruminating on something that he just did.
Imagine if that guy was like a kiss ass.
Yeah, like exactly.
He did something for you that you didn't want to hear, but that made your journey better, man. And I think that's a valuable aspect of human characteristics. Is there's yes men, and then those who, well, and this I get it. Why this is a technical process for people, and there's experience involved, and giving real feedback, really honest, critical feedback. I think that is so important. And you're speaking of it so highly. I think that's a wonderful thing, man. I really appreciate you sharing that.
It makes you better. Like if there's, probably like thick skin and persistence are probably like the 2 best tools for success as a writer. And, if feedback stings sometimes, but like it's supposed to, right? And if you just act on it and make the work better, then it's useful.
Imagine getting back like, oh no, this is great, keep it, like every single time. Wouldn't you be kind of suspicious?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think so, man. Like, what are you not telling me? And then I have to change people.
I had a couple beta readers, and this is I think when I knew that I was like onto something that I could be really excited about. I tried this. Okay, the entire like cave sequence, right? So those like 10 chapters were not in the draft I sent to betas. I based it a huge time jump, right?
Wow.
And because for pacing purposes, because I just didn't want the book to be too long. And I was like, okay, but like maybe I can almost like montage it or something like that. And I was like, and in my head I was like, this might not work. Like, I think it might, but it might not. I said it to my betas, and they were all like, hey, like overall it's solid, but this part of the pacing is totally screwy, does not work. Like all of them said that. I was like, okay, doesn't work. Guess I got to write 100 more pages. But it was like, it was the exact, even though they're like, as a whole, it's like, this is good. They're like, this one piece is like crippling the story. So, and they're right.
So that is part of the writing process that I hope to. I've never done it, so I've never had the chance to. But beta readers, they are very important. You know, as a debut novelist, it's awesome that you had that, because not a lot of people know that that's a thing, and I didn't when I first started talking to authors. Some I've learned, and they are there for the exact reason you are speaking of them, to catch those pacing issues, to be a part of your buddy system, to say, let's publish this. They kind of take on a similar role as you as the author. It's like, hey, I want this to be a great product, a great story, a great book when it's dropped, and this is what I think, because I'm knowledgeable of what it should be or what it should feel like, at least to the point where I think I could tell you constructively and not be full of shit. And that's what I feel like I was for a little bit. And I want to try it one time. It's kind of with a few other beta readers and make sure I'm on the safe road, you know, that I'm looking at the right aspects. But it sounds like that was an intricate part of your process, man, your writing process.
Yeah, it was a huge piece of it. And the cool part with that sequence is like, you know, there's some major like pivotal character moments there that I was able to work in. So it's like, okay, it smoothed out the character arcs. It gives you more interaction with some other characters that need more screen time. Like it made the book what it is. And it's crazy to me that like it wasn't in there in that first iteration or two. And so that's the power of, you know, like good feedback at the right time.
Yeah, I'm sure there was time. Tell me if I'm wrong, but were there times where somebody gave you a piece of that kind of criticism to add or take away, where it had never even crossed your mind to do said thing, and it was a complete learning moment for you?
Yeah. So the other main piece of feedback I got is that, you know, in the early iterations, there's not enough of Sutoku Tenno. And they're like, it kind of feels like you pulled them out at the last minute. And I was like, okay, that's a good, like, and I hadn't really thought of that. My initial idea was like, they're pursuing this like creepy, shadowy cult. And at the very end, you finally get to the bad guy. Like this, you know, the curtain comes down, and you see like, not the wizard behind the curtain, because the Wizard of Oz was kind of wimpy, but like Darth Vader behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, that didn't work. They're like, it feels like it comes out of left field. They're like, he needs to be a bigger presence throughout the novel. And I'm like, okay. And so then I made those adjustments. And that wasn't something that, unlike the pacing issue where I thought it might or might not work, that was something where I was kind of blindsided by that feedback, but they all said it. And I was like, all right, well, you know, rule of three, like they're onto something. And that's the whole point why you ask people who don't live with their heads in your universe, because you get that unfiltered, like outsider's perspective, which you need. Like you got to step outside your own head.
Those people will be reading your novel, right? There's people in the exact same mind frame that will be picking this book up. In fact, a lot of them. So that I love that, dude. I just had a wonderful question. I think I forgot it. Maybe I'll remember. It was a good one. I do remember that. I hope it comes back. All right. So oh man, that was great. I'm trying to follow up how wonderful that was. That publishing talk was just so good, dude. That's what I'm after. That learning aspect to my chats, dude. All right. So what is your writing? So we all know that that's kind of lonely. It takes a lot of time. You're away from your loved ones, your whoever that may be in your particular life. What does your support system look like, and what role did they play?
That's a good question. So my wife Taylor, she's like super supportive of my writing. And so I was asked about this on a different podcast, and because I was like, oh, I guess she read your work. And so we have an agreement. I do not expect her to, and she doesn't have to read a word of it until it's published. At that point, she said she'll read it, and it's I'm not going to badger her about it. It's just like the book is in the house. Whenever she wants to pick it up is fine. I've kind of moved past the point where I expect people to read, like my personal friends and stuff, to read my work. Like the analogy I always use is like, if my buddy owns a chair factory, like I shouldn't have to buy one of his chairs to express my support for him. So, I have some friends who are reading it because they're actually interested in it. I have some, like my two like closest friends, like they're not going to read it, and that's fine. They're just not readers, and I'm not going to like sit there and guilt trip them about it. Like they're not my target audience,
Wouldn't that be inauthentic as shit?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just because I like drink beers with these guys on the weekends doesn't mean that I expect them to like, read for 500 pages and pretend that they like fantasy when they like sports and concerts instead,
You're a logical guy. You're a logical guy.
It was tough at first to square with that, but it's, it's like that's not who it's for.
Look, if my best friend starts doing like ballerina, like I'm going to support the shit out of him and whatever he wants to do, because I love him, love her, whoever it is. But your boy's not going to be doing ballerina.
Yeah.
So having a realistic sense of, and I think it comes back kind of taking things personal. I think maybe it would be hard to get over. Like, say I have this best friend that wouldn't read, like, maybe that's not going to be beneficial anyway. Like, anyway,
yeah.
Without me going down a rabbit hole, that's a great take.
Yeah. So, and they still ask about it. Like, it's not like they don't give a shit, right? It's just they support in different ways. So, like, they're like, oh, hey man, like, how'd the launch go? Like, what? Like, I showed them the cover. It's like, oh, dude, it looks cool. Like, even my friend who's like hasn't read a single book in his whole life still like read like paged through it and was like, man, he's like this looks really good. Like, it's just not. It's like it's just not for him. So like they're still supportive.
That's wonderful.
And then my parents, my brother have also been super supportive. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by, by good people who, even if they're not going to like read the work or anything, they're still definitely in my corner.
Especially those.
Yeah.
Especially those. I love that, man.
And that's kind of like a personal life. And then obviously, like industry wide, right? Like you've been like had my back since day one on this. And I was actually like pretty like humbled to see just how like aggressively like the indie community like rallied around, like it was my debut. Like no one knew who I was. Like you connected me with Andy Peliquin, and he posted about ShadowBane like 9 times over the last week. I was like, that's crazy. Dude. Yeah, like he's he's like a big deal in the indie community, and he just decided that he wanted to read the book and he liked enough to talk about it. Like that's so cool.
Passion-based community.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see. It's pretty staggering, like to, just to be a part of in some small way. So between that kind of like professional support and the kind of like back end support of just like in my day to day, with like my wife, my family, my friends and stuff. I just feel lucky.
I think that I like that you talked about the community too, because man, it's like what I did first was I created the YouTube channel before like I had any socials like X or anything like that, and I was going to do a couple of reviews here and there, and then I think I was taken like a ride just based on what you just said about the community, man, and what Tim's saying here is such an awesome community that I started talking to people. And now I can't stop. It's absolutely so fun to me, and I learned so much. And it's all for like the gain is the passion that they have for what you're doing as an author. Like, so I'm glad that you covered that, because it's such a big part of why so many like Andy, dude. He is just like what you said, man. He just takes it by the horns and goes with it. He loves what he loves, and he loves it all the way through. He talks about it. He represents it, and he is that. He's written many huge books. Yeah, it's like a 6 foot tall stack, dude.
And his enthusiasm comes through like so naturally. Like it's crazy. You can just tell it's like a super like genuine, authentic guy, and his opinions on the book, like he distilled them so well, and he made some like really relevant comps. Like there's a point where he said, he's like, if Demon Slayer was written in a Western style and went full grimdark, it'd be mild and cheerful in comparison to ShadowBane. And I was like, yeah, that's going in an ad campaign. Like I'm ripping that right now.
What you're saying, dude, is what I am after. Like what I don't do well that I strive to, because I write for Before We Go blog, and that's where I published your review. Is I really procrastinate, because I look at guys like Andy Peliquin, who he's a writer. He's been doing this since he was a tot, like, and he says what I wish I could think of. So what you're saying is something I'm very much after. Like, I love watching him because it's such an authentic thing. He does it all day, and he writes, he reviews, and he knows what he's talking about. And I don't really know why I went down that rabbit hole, but it's just a wonderful thing to see in the community.
Yeah. I think I started us down the rabbit hole.
That's another thing, by the way, I love about lives, dude, is like we'll go somewhere I never expected, and those are so fun.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now, man? What's going on in your life? What are you working on?
So real life wise, we're just getting settled into the new place. We're settled now. Like we just bought a grill like a few weeks ago. So I've been like grilling out every Sunday, like chicken wings and football, basically.
Hell yeah.
And then Bears fan, so I'm a little sad right now, but
I'm not an NFL fan. I don't know what so I love that you're a football fan. I'm a college freak.
Oh, there you
Michigan fan. But I love that you're a football fan and grilling out. That's the whole thing, man.
I don't got to go down the football tangent, but yeah, it's so we're getting settled into the new house. Work wise, everything's pretty stable, and as far as writing, I'm pretty close to finishing the first draft of the sequel to ShadowBane.
There's the piece I was looking for, dude.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I hope you think of me when that bad boy comes out or is close to coming out, because I'm on your side, man. And there's very few authors and there's a few in the comments. Tim, man, he's one of those guys. It's like I am excited, inspired by what I read and the I don't know, the vibe, the feel I get from reading your stories, man. So I'm just pumped, dude. It's cool to find people like that, because it's not like you read every book and instantly connect with people like that. But to feel that through your first novel, dude, I'm here for it, man. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for me too, because I get to read it.
Yeah, you'll definitely get that sequel copy. I think you've more than earned that. You definitely, like I said, you connect me with a bunch of other reviewers and some other like blogs and stuff that were kind enough to give me an interview or a review. So
that's my reward. Like when I see somebody like you, like seeing Andy Peliquin put stuff out, dude, it's like it makes my day, because you deserve it, man. You put the work in, you put a great story out, you've tidied it up. This is your baby, and this is a beautiful baby. And you put the work in, and I can sense that through every part of this. So I just want the best for you, dude. And that's like the essence. That's the essence of the community. Look at it, Shane. Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, you're gonna be posting about it. Be like, oh shit, this is totally different in my hands. And I want to know about it, because I'm gonna be like, hey, I told you so, because it is. You're gonna have an experience, dude. It's a wonderful story. You'll be like,
I think I saw Shane on Twitter. Like, the cover got retweeted a bunch through the cover reveal or something more recently, maybe the release. And Shane was like, he's like, oh, this looks badass. I'm getting one. I'm like, yes. Like, all right, like, I'm glad the cover is catching eyes. That
has to feel good, because you don't have to go with the version that Andre put out. That's up to you, and right, you made the decision to make that your cover, and to see that is reflecting in people's decision to buy the book. Let's face it, we judge a book by its cover first, and then we dig deeper and watch interviews like with the Beard of Darkness. We talk about the intricate parts of the story, and it sells us even more. But first, we're looking at that cover, so that has to feel good.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assumption. If you can tell that the author didn't put any effort into their cover, it's a reasonable assumption that they didn't put any effort into what's on the inside either.
Yeah. And I have to add one more step: the formatting. There is so many indie books I've received that I've been excited about, to where the formatting, I don't know why, dude, it just turns me off. Like, it's hard to read. But that didn't happen with this book. But cover and formatting are so important.
I did that on Atticus, actually, and I was really nervous. I was very close to hiring somebody, But then I was like, all right, let me give this a Google and see if I can figure this out. And then I was like, and if it still sucks, I'll
Atticus?
hire someone. Yeah. It's
What
like
is that?
it's like a formatting software. There's two main ones, Atticus and Vellum. Vellum is only available for Apple or like Macs, and I'm a PC Android guy, so I went with Atticus. Small learning curve, and I think Vellum is like more powerful. So Atticus is not like quite as robust, but if you just keep it pretty simple, then it works. And then the one thing that was really frustrating was getting like, do you still have the book with you?
Yeah, it's right here, dude. I'm about to open it.
So the chapter headers, so that image there, so that was a little frustrating to get that stuff like centered and lined up properly, because there's not just like the way that they space or size images, it's just not super fluid. So I had to like go back into Photoshop, like, oh, I'm gonna cut off like another like 1/16 of an inch and see if that spaces it better with the number and so on, stuff like that. But once I got past that, the formatting was pretty straightforward.
So there's so many people out there like me that I've learned from people that I'm saying like me, but I probably learned from them that maps are the badass parts of like opening a book. Dude, check this fucking map out, bro. It is an entire 2-page part of this novel. There's not like a legend that like takes up 90% of the 1 page. Nope. You get a whole 2-page map, and it's full of the cities. There are peaks and valleys and mountains and all sorts of fun stuff that I hope you expand on a little bit. Did you do the map, or did he Andre do the map?
So I did the map in Incarnate. Another huge learning curve. First couple maps I made were really awful, but they weren't in this world, so I was a little more experienced with it when I went to this one. Hang on, I want to circle back because Corinne, am I saying that right? Pointed something out. Yeah. So InDesign is the industry standard for formatting for like trad pubs and stuff. I tried to get that, and at the time, the computer I had was not like powerful enough to run the software. And then seeing the gigantic learning curve that it came with, I just decided to go with Atticus because it was simpler, and I was willing to take that trade off. But any trad pub book is going to be done using InDesign, and this kind of ties into what E.L. Montague is saying, that there's skill sets to all this stuff, and I know when I'm out of my depth, and so I wasn't going to attempt InDesign, and that's obviously why I hired a cover artist, and I'm lucky enough that I had the funds to hire professionals when I'm out of my depth, which obviously, you as rightly pointed out, not everyone's in that position, and so it's kind of a matter of like picking your battles for where you have the time to learn something, or when you need to hire out.
Ooh, I like that too, because it gives me a viewpoint, a point of view that I don't necessarily have as somebody who hasn't written a novel, because there are things that you're going to pick up or talk about that I may have no idea about because I've never written this novel. So stuff like that, I love to be brought up. InDesign, I've never heard of it. As many of the author I've ever talked to, like publishing, self-publishing, it doesn't matter. I've never heard of InDesign. So that's an intricate part of many of those people's lives or processes in writing. And I just love those little pieces of gold.
I had not heard of it either, and I was really excited to be like, oh, like I'm gonna use the same tool that like the professionals use at the trad houses and stuff. And then I it was a nightmare even trying to get it on my computer, and had to pay for like the software and subscription, and
it's probably not cheap.
No, and it's some powerful software. So and it was like my computer couldn't even run it, and I was like, all right, like and then I was like, I'm just gonna switch to something else.
So before we kind of talk about the last topic, I wanted to, if I can open the damn book chapter or the book page here, I will get to it in just a second, guys. Is your and if it's too personal, you ain't got to talk about it. But your dedication is something I think is beautiful, and I have no idea what the story is. So the dedication says, "In memory of my father-in-law Ray, who patiently humored every good and bad idea that crossed my mind over a steaming cup of coffee, I'll always treasure our talks up on that balcony. You are loved and you are missed."
So that's
Beautiful.
about. Thank you. So it's about my wife's dad, Ray, and he and I were really close. So we had this family has this condo on like Michigan, out in Michigan City, and they have a balcony out there, and so like we'd spend like Labor Day out there, and some weekends of the summer out there, and after breakfast, he and I would have a coffee, and I would just like talk at him about the book, and he's not a reader. And I usually do not talk to people about my writing who aren't interested in it. But he was just like such a patient dude and such a good conversationalist that he would just sit there and just like be as interested and engaged as possible, even though he wasn't an avid reader. He was just like a really good guy. And so, I just bounced like a lot of ideas off him or talked about the process and stuff. It's just like a good, like father son conversation as I was like exploring this stuff and trying to, got another rejection from an agent or whatever and stuff like that. And, and he's like, how many more are there? Like 3? I'm like, oh, like 70. So a lot of rejections, stuff like that. But he's always asking questions and just always just like lent an ear.
I think that's beautiful, dude.
And then and so we lost him to melanoma in 2021. And that's around the time when I was like finishing the draft of Sundering. And so, I was going through a lot at the time, obviously. And then I injured myself like a few weeks later, like really badly, like blew my back out, and lifting's like a huge thing for me. I was basically like anchor lifting to deal with that. And then I got so hurt I couldn't lift anymore. So I basically like put everything into writing, and I ended up finishing what was the first draft of ShadowBane, which includes part of what is the second book now. But I ended up writing the last 45,000 words in 18 days. Like,
wow, dude.
Like I was on some serious like rage fuel and just processing a lot. And so just dealing with all that throughout the drafting process, and then especially, after he passed, I probably finished the book within about 2 months of that. But I was kind of, there's a lot that I was dealing with that kind of inspired a lot of the, it's safe to say that some of the characters go through a lot of pain in that book. And that's, I think that's reflected in just like what I was dealing with in real life. So I figured it was only right to dedicate. I'm going to dedicate every book in the trilogy to him, just because, he was such a huge, like a big presence in my life. And
I appreciate you sharing it. I know it would be, man. I know it would be. That's why I wanted to ask it last, because that speaks to me more than anything anybody could say right there, dude. That is very important to the final product right here. And I want to thank you, first of all, for sharing it, because I know that's probably not easy, but I treasure it. And I'm glad that you shared it, man, because that is excellent. That is the human condition. That's what we're here for. That is what everybody in this chat, everybody who ever watches this will relate with 100%. Matt, did I ask you, ask if Cal is a pan? You know what? I'm so glad I skipped over that question, and I meant to go back to it. So we'll cover that real quick. What do you do? Are you a pantser? Are you an outliner?
It's pretty chaotic, to be honest. I always have, like, for all my projects, I have a pretty strong idea of the initial concept, and where it's going to end, and like 2 or 3 major beats. But I usually have to pants my way there, because there's a point, especially early on in drafting, where I'm just exploring the characters and trying to figure out like how they solve problems, like their worldview, like their value system, and some of that stuff I just can't I can't do like a character board or and stuff like that. That's just not the way my brain works. So there's a point where once I know what's going to happen, I kind of discovery write my way there. And then if there's parts that seem jarring or incongruous, I just smooth those out until it's like smooth and linear. But I try to outline the plot as much as I can.
Okay, so let me see if I got this right. That this is also a very, very like telling thing for me. This is something I struggle with. I struggle with, because I want to pants. I feel like, not just because, at first it was like, oh, I have to pants because that's like what the greatest do. It's not that no more. I don't care what anybody does. It's like, I want to pants because I feel like that is an authentic way to tell a story from one page to the next. but I also feel like I need to have somewhat of an outline, because if I don't, the continuity won't be there. Did you struggle with continuity when pantsing? And if you didn't or did, would you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it tends to be more character continuity as opposed to plot continuity. It's funny, even though the characters are probably like definitely the core of of ShadowBane, and their relationship is like what the novel's really about. That's probably the last thing that fits into place besides like some small world building details, because those are like the things that I just have to weave into like every chapter. And so, like a good example is like Shura was initially like pretty altruistic, and I was like, this character's flat and it doesn't work. I was like, I need to add way more dimensions to this. And so I was like, okay, like how could I motivate this character to harbor some resentment and do some kind of questionable things towards the end of the story? Like why would she do this? And so that's kind of where you get her like kind of like her bitterness and insecurity of like always being told like, know your place, like don't step a toe out of line, like this is your role, not that. And it's like, okay, like that would incentivize someone to, that would put a chip on someone's shoulder. So that's something that like was not in the first draft. And then I went back and like inserted that stuff, and then and that kind of tied into like the world building. So, and even though none of those directly affected the plot, I think it makes the character a lot more believable to make those decisions she does.
Now, do you think that fell into part of learning and knowing the Asian culture of this? Did that kind of fall into keeping that authentic? Now, again, this is somebody who's kind of ignorant to that, but I'm going to assume that women didn't have much of a voice back in the day.
No, they did not. Yeah, definitely. So like, both characters are products of their world. So the more I learned about feudal Japan and some of the like the social customs and expectations and stuff, the more that's what really gave life to the backstory, which then obviously gives life to the characters themselves, and the characters drive the plot. And then I can use the events of like the plot's history, like, oh, this war was fought, like this person, married this person's daughter as means of an alliance. Oh, sure, it was raised at court beside them. Like, how would that little thing, like, how would that dynamic play out? How would that feed into her resentment with like her role and expectations of basically being used as like a marriage pawn? So it's kind of like one hand washes the other, but there's three hands: plot, character, world.
Yeah.
And so that's why I, even though I do like to outline like what's like the big beats of what's going to happen, I like to kind of discover for myself like how we're going to get there. And the character is the vehicle for that.
I love that. So a few things real quick, guys. So one is just kind of a conversation between me and Cal. Dude, I don't often go an hour and a half with people, and if I do, get out of here. It's been wonderful, man. Second, looking forward to the success of this novel to continue is what I really can't wait for, because there's a period when you release a book as a novel or as an author. I've seen and I've come to understand that it's not the release day. It's gaining excitement and leading into that second or third or fourth book that you gain a lot of people who want to read your stuff. You get influenced by those who have read it, and kind of that kind of arc. It's not necessarily the release of the first book, because people don't know. It takes stuff like this and what you're going to do in the future to inform people. But I just want to thank you, because you've given a lot of personal notes. You've given a lot of experience and stuff that will not only encourage people to have an interest in your work, but have an interest in what they want to do. For example, the information you've given about your publication journey and all the ups and downs and the kind of information you took in is very telling. People will learn. I'm just only speaking for me because I'm learning. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again the next time we have you, because, with your work coming out, that's just inevitable. I enjoy you as a author, as a writer, as a person. So I'm excited for that. But also, we're going to have other stuff to talk about. You're growing. And with that brings the information and knowledge to us who want to gain that for things we want to do, such as me. I have a passion for writing and reading. So much stuff like that. Real quick, I will continue with the tangent that I'm on. E.L. Montague wants to know, is there an audio book in the future?
In the future, yeah, I'm strongly leaning towards it. It's fine. I just had a podcast, did a podcast on over the weekend, and one of the co-hosts is involved in audiobook production. And I was like, and she gave me a lot of great insight as to how to approach it. And I was like, all right, this feels like a sign. So I definitely want to do it. I have to, I have to assess my budget and my timeline. But I definitely want to get that out there.
As somebody who has a little bit of experience on that side of writing that you don't yet, that you will very soon, because you have so much experience on the side that I don't. An audiobook, dude, is going to bring a whole other like side. I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's those who read, and then there are those who want to read but listen to audiobooks. So I think it just makes it that much more legitimate with an audiobook. But I do know that the creation of an audiobook is very expensive, and it often takes debut novelists a little bit of time to get that out. But I do know the impact that it has, and I think that it would very much reward you.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the idea of doing it. Like you touched on it being expensive, right? So I got to assess the budget, and because like I'm not gonna half-ass it. If I do it, I want it to be a really high quality product that can stand alongside the the written product or printed product. And I already have like an idea where I'd have male and female narrators, and they would read Jin and Shora's chapters.
Oh yeah,
and
dude,
then I like narrators who are comfortable speaking some Japanese, just for like the in-world terms and stuff that are used. So that's, I imagine that won't be cheap. But like I said, it's something I'm thinking about, and I just got to crunch some numbers.
Yeah, some people do it themselves. E.L. Montague does a wonderful self-narrated book. He does, but I have to say also that there aren't many successful people who do that. He does it well, but there aren't many. So if you do decide that, make sure you get some criticism and all that fun stuff. But what I'm taking away, man, is a very valuable piece. I knew that. I told my wife this morning, I said, this will go down as one of my top 5 interviews. And it has, man, because, we're both excited. Yeah, 100%, dude. We're both excited about what you're doing and to learn about it in a intimate way as we have over the last hour and 34 minutes is fun, man. And I'm very, very, very thankful for it. So this won't be as long as I have something to do with it, because I'll definitely invite you. Not be your last time on the channel. So I want to say thank you, man, for sharing your experience, as well as those who were here live to kind of ask questions and add to the conversation.
That was really fun, having people ask questions in the middle of it. That's a really cool element.
Yeah, it's, some people are like apprehensive because it's live, and I'm just like, for me, it's just, there's no other way to do it, man. It's just so fun. But Cal, man, you got a fan inside me, dude, forever. For those who are here live, thank you for asking your questions. And for anybody that watches this in replay, and I don't often say this, but I think I will start. Add your comments. If there were questions that we didn't cover, throw those down below, and we'll get to them next time. Or if we see them on the comment, we'll answer them. But yeah, man, thank you so much. And we will see you guys. Let's see, tomorrow with Rebecca Cuthbert. She's a poet, the only poet I've ever had on the channel. She's wonderful. Cal, thank you.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me on. I had a great time, and like I said earlier, you've basically been in my corner since very early throughout the release process. So I really appreciate how much you've shouted out about ShadowBane.
That's what makes this vein right here pop out, dude. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, dude. You're the reason I'm here, man. Is people like you just passionate about what you're doing and doing it right. So you're an example to be had, and I can't wait for the rest. So you guys have a wonderful night, morning, afternoon, wherever it is, wherever you are, and we will talk tomorrow.